I named this channel The Veto because I think the people have the ultimate veto power.
That's great.
It's our freedom. We have the responsibility
Yeah.
to watch over society, to veto the bad ideas in the ballot box.
That's good.
Congressman, you serve on the Appropriations Committee. Most Americans are probably familiar with the idea of the power of the purse. We hope that grade school students have at least been introduced to the idea that Congress funds our government. But I'm not sure that most Americans truly understand the process in which Congress does that.
I'm not sure I do. No, I'm kidding.
And maybe Congress doesn't, or has lost memory of that. Can you describe for the audience, how is it supposed to work?
Sure. So I grew up a schoolhouse rock. I'm just a bill, only a bill. So that's kind of where I learned government before I got into school. We have not been doing it the way that Schoolhouse Rock said it was supposed to be done. And in fact, the way our founding fathers did. So I'm going to give you a quick primer. I don't want to talk down to anyone here, but here's how it works here on Capitol Hill, okay? Of course, we have two bodies, the upper chamber, which is the Senate, the lower chamber, which is the House. We have 435 members typically in the U.S. House. We each represent somewhere between 750,000 and 800,000 people each. We serve 2-year terms. When we come to Washington, we are assigned committees by leadership. You can be on an authorizing committee where you make up laws and you authorize programs, or you can be on the Appropriations Committee, which I think, now that I'm on it, it's the most, I don't want to say powerful, probably the most influential, because the Appropriation Committee writes all the checks. Let me give you an example. So I was on the Armed Services Committee originally, my first term. We put out each year the National Defense Authorization Act. Those authorize the programs for Department of War, mainly, our military defense capabilities, satellite technology that's used for Department of Defense, bombers, everything that you can think of. But that authorizes that. The House passes that, the Senate passes it, it gets signed into law by the President of the United States. You can authorize all day long, but if it's not sent over to the Appropriations Committee and the money actually appropriated for that expenditure, it doesn't get done. So here's the issue. We have authorizing committees who are doing their job, and we are supposed to appropriate these funds each year by the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of September. We operate on not the calendar year like most Americans from January to December. We operate from October to September. So we are supposed to get our appropriations work done and appropriate all these programs by the end of September. So last September, we were to have done all 12 appropriation bills. Those are the big appropriation package divided into 12 separate bills, 12 separate subcommittees. We get those funded in our subcommittees, we get them funded in our whole committee, and then it goes to the House floor to get each 12 appropriations bill passed by the House, passed by the Senate, come to a conference if we have differences, which there usually are, and then signed by the President of the United States, all by September, the end of September, because the new fiscal year starts in October. We haven't done that in a long time. And there are several reasons why, and I don't like looking in the rearview mirror all the time, but I've got to cast a little blame on the Democrats, because their modus operandi, especially under the long tenure of Nancy Pelosi, was to wait, delay, obfuscate, not let the committees do their business under regular order, not having debate on amendments and growing these bills from the bottom up and having input and hearings. The idea was, let's put it off, let's put it off, let's put it off. Then we can pass at the end of the year when everyone wants to go home for Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's, we can put it in what's called an omnibus bill, all these 12 rolled in together, and we can shove it down the member's throat. We won't even tell them what's in it. It's going to be about this thick. You won't have a chance to read it. You voted or I beat you over the head with an iron skillet. Okay? Does that work? That's the way it worked. And so when Nancy Pelosi was infamously captured saying, vote it for it, pass it, and then you can read what's in it. That's what she was talking about. But my friends, that's how we ended up with $4 trillion of money injected into our economy under Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden. That caused, I think, almost irreparable harm. We are making inroads along with President Trump and the administration in trying to right this ship. But all that money injected into our economy, and yes, President Trump did too, some during COVID, and the Congress did there. But Biden kept on going with the Inflation Reduction Act, the Green New Scam, pumping trillions of dollars into our economy. Guess what? People started buying things, spending. Inflation shot through the roof. And because of that, the Federal Reserve had to put the squeeze on inflation and raise interest rates so people couldn't borrow or wouldn't borrow as much money because the interest rates were higher. And that's why we have this so-called affordability crisis right now, because the Democrats created this with the omnibus. Now, our goal on appropriations is to get back to what's called regular order. What does that mean? It means we're going to do things the right way. We've got to get a budget from the President of the United States. He's supposed to submit that by February 15th. He did not do that last year, but typically new administrations don't get their budgets in on time. So we gave the president a little pass. It was still that we got a kind of a sketchy budget outline, but we didn't have a top line number until June, almost July. It's hard for us to do our work and develop these 12 appropriation bills without having a top line number of where we want to be. And our budget committee here in the House also needs to come up with a budget. Out of necessity and out of people really not doing their jobs, the top line number was left up to our chairman, Tom Cole, his counterpart, the ranking member, and their two counterparts in the Senate. And that's where we got to today. We came in with good numbers. We're making big cuts. We just passed the National Security and State Program, State Department, which used to be called State and Foreign Operations. We cut that department. We cut that budget by 16%. Overall, we're making about a 7% cut in spending. It's not where we need to be. A lot of people want to get back to pre-COVID spending, but keep in mind, when it comes to our budgetary concerns, only 24 to 26% of our budget is on so-called discretionary spending. The rest goes to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And, a lot of people don't want to touch those programs. We did, in the reconciliation process, make some significant, not cuts, but some corrections to Medicaid to save the program. We kicked illegal aliens off the program. We made people start to qualify for it every 6 months. Prove that you need it before we give you the money. So I know that's a very long-winded answer, but that's how it's supposed to work. And I'm so glad that I'm on a committee that wants to get it back that way. And that's why we must retain our majority in the U.S. House of Representatives come November. If we don't, come January 3rd of next year, Hakeem Jeffries will be Speaker of the House. Laura Rosa DeLauro, a Democrat from Connecticut, will be the new chair of the Appropriations Committee, and we will be back to omnibus on steroids. And all this work that we have done will be for naught, to turn our country around, to start whittling away at our $38 trillion worth of debt, to get us back on the right track as a nation.
Thank you so much. That was a really, really comprehensive answer, but it's important. I think oftentimes we overlook the details, and sadly, if you overlook the details, your biggest obstacle to progress is you miss the process. And
that's right.
And that's very important what you just said. You mentioned inflation. I know one of the areas that you've really worked on is housing affordability. Mm-hmm. Bankrate in December put out a report that said roughly 75% of American homes are unaffordable for the typical American household. Thankfully, the Trump administration has really made a lot of progress. We've seen interest rates at the lowest monthly rate in over 3 years. Americans' monthly payments are the lowest they've been in 2 years. Trump administration has certainly taken that issue head on. You're doing a lot of work in Congress on that. Just two-part question. First, how did we get here? And secondly, what are some of the things you're doing in Congress to address that issue?
Well, thanks for that question. How did we get here? Well, a lot of this, again, this is a blame game, I guess, but I think Joe Biden had a lot to do with us getting here. One of the reasons home prices have shot through the roof, and that's kind of, didn't mean that to be a joke or a pun, is because of the added overregulation of climate initiatives in the Inflation Reduction Act, so-called Inflation Reduction Act, that actually caused more inflation, that were promulgated and adopted, I should say, by local municipalities because they want the federal money, right? So they adopted these strict climate change rules. Kansas City, let's use them for example. They're just north of the district I represent. After the Inflation Reduction Act came out and these new climate change initiatives were adopted in city code, in order to build a house, you had to go along with these lame brain ideas. It increased the cost to build a house by 25%. Well, guess what? Builders stopped building in Kansas City. From October of that year until January of the next year, 3 building permits were pulled for a house in Kansas City. Kansas City is a big place. It's a big housing market, and it's probably one of those most stable markets around. I am a former realtor. My wife's a realtor there in Kansas City. My son is as well. So I know what I'm talking about on this. Builders moved out of the Kansas City area or set on the sidelines, and so there's a shortage of stock, housing stock. The other issue is interest rates. Interest rates shot up because of the influx of money that was pumped into the economy, as I mentioned. And those mortgage rates are directly connected to the Fed rate. Not entirely, but there is a connection there. And then the third, I would say, on the affordability issue, other rates, because, first-time home buyers, it used to be, I bought my first home at 27 years of age. 20, 30 years ago, the average age was under 30 or right at 30. Now the average age for a first-time home buyer is 40 years of age. There's several reasons for that. Part of it is financial. I think young people today want to have experiences. I'm going to sound like a boomer here, but they want their $5 Starbucks. They want to travel and have experiences. My kids are like that. And they may not be ready to settle down and attach themselves to a long-term career in one market, like I did and like my father did. But getting the down payment together is a big issue. And insurance rates, when you get your down payment is very high, and your monthly payment, because of insurance rates, paying private mortgage insurance if you don't have 20% down, and just the interest rate in general. It put the price of a home out of the reach for many Americans. The other idea, I think a concept, is our expectations have grown over the years of what a starter home is. When I left being a realtor in Kansas City 4 or 5 years ago, I was selling starter homes. They were $450,000 with nice granite tops. They were nice, but that's what our young entry market has come to expect. And I'm not saying you shouldn't expect a nice home, but that wasn't the case 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with 1 garage. We have grown our expectations in America of what a starter home should be. And I'm not saying we should go back to that. Back then, you only qualified for a home on 1 income. In the 1970s, we went to qualifying on 2 incomes, so you could afford more, okay? Our expectations have increased, our interest rates have increased, our housing stock has gone down. People can't scrape together a significant down payment, and the monthly payment is killing people. And so I think young people have opted, hey, I will rent. I won't be tied down to a particular job or a community. I can travel when I want to. I have freedom. And I think that's where we are now.
Congressman, thank you so much. If you have time for one more question.
Sure.
I know that you're very, very busy. Prior to being in Congress, you're a very successful news anchor. I'd like to ask you about the media landscape a little bit. Gallup usually tracks the trust of Americans in mainstream media. Last year, they reported that Overall, Americans' trust in media fell to just 28%. For Republicans, that number's about 8% of those who believe that their news is being reported accurately. As someone with experience in the field, and you've gone from one side of the camera to the other, why do Americans seem to be trusting less and less of our legacy media sources?
I have a whole doctoral dissertation on this if I ever get to that level, or I could write a book. This is going to be another long-winded answer, but
okay.
I want to walk through with your viewers here and your listeners. Again, I'm going to sound like a boomer, but back in the day, when I grew up, you had three networks: ABC, NBC, CBS, and you had PBS. Back then, PBS was actually teaching people the ABCs, not the DEIs. Okay, so it was much different. We're defunding PBS, by the way. You had maybe an hour's worth of news every day. You had a 30-minute newscast from the network. You had a local newscast, maybe at 5, maybe one at 6, and then a 10 o'clock news. That was it. In the 1980s, a little company called Cable News Network, CNN, with Bobby Batista, came on and changed the world. It gave us 24-hour news. Well, what happened was, with the advent of cable at that time, this is before streaming, this is just cable, others came and saw marketing and money-making opportunities to launch their own cable news services, MSNBC, you name them, the liberal stations, and Fox. Fox came onto the scene. It became, instead of a 1-hour news operation, a 24-hour news operation. And because it was on cable, you had to fill that entire 24 hours. So what did you fill it with? Well, you filled it with people who were many times irrational, verbose, theatrical, some nut jobs in there. Some people had really good ideas. Some people who like to argue. But what producers found out, the way to keep people engaged with your product is to be outlandish, to have guests on who are not wanting to have a civilized debate, but wanting to argue, wanting to obfuscate, wanting to be theatrical and make a scene and come up with a good soundbite. P.T. Barnum, the inventor of the modern circus, would be proud. He said there's a sucker born every minute. And this, what news turned into was nothing, I think, that Edward R. Murrow or Dan Rather, even, although I'm not a big fan of Dan Rather, certainly Walter Cronkite from my hometown of Kansas City, you name them, Peter Jennings, all the stalwarts of journalism in my era would be ashamed of what is going on today. Americans have lost trust and faith in the news media because of the strident voices who are not telling the truth, but giving opinion. I firmly believe, look, we cannot, as a Congress, we cannot regulate journalism. It is the so-called Fourth Estate. They have First Amendment protection, and we should not be regulating journalism. I think journalists, true journalists, need to regulate themselves. I would be in favor of a Hippocratic oath, similar to what medical professionals take. But instead of to do no harm to the patients, to always tell the truth. Maybe some sort of certification for journalists, self-certification. We have little blue checks or gray checks on X or Twitter. Why not do the same thing for journalists to maybe regulate themselves? Congress is not going to do that. We also need diversity. One of the reasons we have, and I know diversity is a bad word when it comes to some of the programs that have been abused over the years, but when I was in a newsroom, and I was never in on the hiring process, but I saw how it worked firsthand. News directors and general managers wanted to hire people who were on board with their way of thinking. They didn't want anyone who was going to challenge the system or challenge the daily meeting with new ideas. Typically in journalism school, it leans left. If you look at studies that are done by people that track donations to political parties, donations from journalists to the Democrats far and exceed, I mean, way far and exceed those made to Republicans. There is a liberal bent in journalism to begin with. My solution to that would be journalists, newsrooms, managers make the same attempt at diversity when they hire diversity in gender, economic background, race to try to have a balanced newsroom. Hire conservatives in the newsroom. Be challenged each day at those new meetings and come up with a product that serves everyone and not just a target audience. The third proposal I have, and this is directed to Fox as well as CNN, as well as MSNBC or whatever they're called now. I don't think the American people have a clear understanding of what they're watching sometimes, that what they're watching is not news, that it is opinion. Again, when I was growing up, you had newspapers and you would read the news on the front page and you would open it up and it would say editorial page. You knew what you were reading there is editorial news. But I think if I went out on the street and I asked people, let's just take Fox for an example. A lot of people watch Fox throughout the day. Is Bret Baier a news anchor? And they would say yes. And I do believe he is a good news anchor. Unbiased, I think fair and balanced. That used to be their slogan. What about Sean Hannity as a news anchor? People would say, yes, he is. No, Sean Hannity is not a news anchor. I respect Sean Hannity. He's very talented, but he's in the opinion column, okay? But when his program is on and up on Fox News, it doesn't say opinion on there. It says Fox News. This leads to some confusion. I think the same holds true with CNN and their opinion program that still carries cable news network. The same with the MSNBC and all the cable channels. My point is, I think the media needs to self-regulate and clearly delineate what is opinion and what is news so that people can make an informed decision. They can have choices and make a decision with their remote control about what they want to watch and what they want to ingest. And my last piece of advice to those watching right now, I love Fox News, but I also watch CNN. I watch as many news sources as I can. Number one, I want to know what the bad guys are saying. I want to know what the liberal spin is on something. That helps me articulate better and makes me really flesh out why I believe what I believe. I love to be challenged, okay? If you're getting your news from one source, that's probably not a good diet. I love ice cream, but I probably wouldn't eat it every meal, okay? So change up your diet. Look at other news sources. Read, gather information from the internet and other sources, and then you weigh out what is true. I had a slogan, and I still use this. The last day when I signed off the air, I was an anchor at the Fox station in Kansas City for 23 years and anchored the #1 morning show. I was on the air for 5 hours a day for 23 years, a lot of time on the air. And when I signed off, I said these words. You can look it up or I'll send it to you. You can post it with this. But I said, everything that I have done at this station is about one thing. It's about truth. Every ad lib that I've made, every context that I've added to a story is for one reason, and that is because truth is the only thing that matters. And I'm here to tell you, whether it's in Congress with what we do, in trusting us with your legislation and trusting us with your vote here in Washington, you've got to believe that your representative, like Kevin Hern in Oklahoma, is operating from a point of truth. That's what we're about here. That's what the news media should be about, because truth is the only thing that matters.
Congressman, there's no better way to end it than that. I appreciate your time. I know you're very, very busy. Thank you to the great people of Missouri for lending you to Congress. And thank you for the work you're doing there. Keep up the good fight, and appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Veto. Be sure to like and subscribe to this content on Substack by visiting yourveto.com. Don't forget that we the people hold the ultimate veto power. It's your freedom, it's your decision. We'll see you next time.